Court Vision is back in session.
Welcome to Court Vision from New Roads Media.
Hey, we got an intro!
That is so cool. I love that.
You can thank Tommy for that. He did it all on his own.
So Kilroy knew that Tommy had created that. Nobody told me. That was my first vision. I love that. It's awesome.
I whipped that up in about an hour.
Oh,
The hour leading up to the show.
3,600 seconds well spent.
Yeah, I'm too lazy to figure out if that's correct.
Tell me in the comments. Can I math? Who knows? That's awesome, Tommy. Love that.
All right. Thank you again, Tommy, for that. That's awesome. You told me who the music was from, but I'm too lazy to go find that email. It's free music from one of those what's it called?
Royalty-free music.
Yes, royalty-free music.
Somehow,
so Tommy,
We'll credit it in the description. We'll throw the credit in the description.
I won't remember. Look, right now we ain't making any money off of this.
Sue us, I dare you.
Surprise! This is just a hobby.
Take 40% of the profit. See if I care. Tommy, is Kilroy stuck on your world too?
Yes.
All right, good. Glad it's not just me. Hi, everybody. We're taking over the show, baby. Let's go.
He's got the jazz hands going on. While he figures himself out.
Yeah, Tommy, there's one of two ways that this can go down, and I'm going to guess it's going to end with us just restarting this as, oh, there he is. Hey, Kilroy, how you doing?
I have no idea. I'm right. Give me a second.
You want to stop recording and we can
have to edit
do another take at this?
No.
We'll do it live.
This is much more fun.
Guys, there's low brow, there's low brow, and then there's no brow, and we've gone somehow lower than that.
We've gone to the depths of brow hell.
We've got to brow hell.
All right, I'm hardwired in now, so hopefully this won't happen again.
Beautiful, love it.
Whatever. Anyway, brand new internet
session.
I moved, so this is just new internet. Don't worry, it's only been 3 minutes. We're not cutting any of this because we don't edit here at New Roads Media because, eventually we will. I'm just lazy.
Nope.
And as you can tell, I'm in the same spot I was about a month
Tommy has actually moved to the Alamo. When you remember the Alamo, you're remembering Tommy. But he's still alive, hopefully. You're not a ghost, right?
Am I?
I remember Tommy.
I don't know, but I remember Fireworks Tommy. Fireworks Tommy was awesome.
I don't know. Ghost Tommy's pretty impressive. That was solid work right there.
That's true. That is true.
When you actually have the internet and you can watch us, go back and watch what Tommy just did. You'll be very impressed.
I can see it. I'm very impressed. If I throw up a background, I can do the same thing. I'm not doing that. Anyway,
as you can tell, we have very little.
That's really why you people are here I actually don't know why, but it's for basketball, presumably.
You've made a mistake.
Yeah, you've made a mistake. You clicked the wrong link, or you've been watching too many YouTube and you kind of fell asleep, and we're just playing.
We're really good at being the next up on YouTube.
Yeah, there we go. All right, so we are approximately a quarter way through the NBA season.
Wow.
Of the 2024-2025 season. It has been quite the up and down for a lot of teams. Some teams struggling early, bouncing back. Some teams trying to bounce back, but had a pretty big hit early on, so it will be very difficult for them to. Not that they can't. No spoilers. No spoilers. As we continue through, let's kick things off with the list that Kevin sent us in the email that only Kevin curated. It was clearly not Mongo, and 100% Kevin, who, as you can tell, is not here right now.
He literally wouldn't come fight me in the streets because he knew I was going to call him out on stealing my list.
The Kevin list brought to you by Mongo.
Yeah, I guess I'll take it. If you can't be the writer, you might as well be the producer, right? I guess that's the way to go.
That's the spirit. All right, let's kick things off with the Pacific. Why the Pacific? Because that's how he put it. So let me scroll down. Where's the Pacific? They're in the West. All right, the Pacific. So
I thought they were in the East.
Yep, the Pacific East Coast, everyone's favorite ocean. So let's just do a quick rundown of the records. We'll do wins. Losses are not as relevant. It's not because I said so. Actually, that's not true. We'll do it all. So we got in first place or a tie with Phoenix and Golden State at 12 and 8 apiece. Clippers at 14 and 10. Lakers at 12 and 10, and the Sacramento bringing up the rear at 10 and 12. Two surprises that I'm going to say right away is the Clippers are doing better than I thought they would, and Sacramento is doing worse than I thought they would. Now, I will say this. James Harden is playing like old James Harden, and that's probably, a pretty big reason why the Clippers are better than I thought they would be. And Zubrick, whatever his name is.
There's let you have that one. I didn't care. It's the holiday season. You call him whatever you want. We'll get to something later.
He's been balling out as well. So all in all, the Pacific is pretty much as expected. Golden State's a little bit higher than most people, and they were much higher, and then they started falling off of late. Same with the Lakers. The Suns. Golden State is on a 5-game losing streak. The Lakers were up there as well. Now they're getting close to 500 again.
They got their first ever cup loss.
Oh no, who cares? So we're gonna swing over to Phoenix real quick, who I believe we all had winning the division or near the top of the division. No surprise, that's where they still sit. This team is just the best team in this division. Kevin Durant is going to be missing about 1 to 2 weeks with an ankle injury. I don't expect them to be hurt too much from that, as long as no one else gets hurt in between. What's that going to be, like 5 games that he might miss? They'll go 3-2 at worst, I think. Devin Booker.
It's really early in the season. They'll be fine.
Yeah, Devin Booker and Bradley Beal are still there, and they're still balling out, and the team as a whole is a solid team. So I wouldn't worry too much if I was Suns fans. Warriors, they were bound to fall back down to earth. This team is not as good as their record was early in the year, and it was going to be very difficult for them to sustain that. They have some pieces. They're probably going to try to go out and buy someone because they're going to try to make this, the next year or so, probably a push to try to get one more ring, or at least attempt to get one more ring for Steph and Draymond. Obviously, no Clay anymore, so you can't include him. He's down in Dallas. What is your take so far, Mongo, on the Pacific?
Yeah, so there's a shocking a lot to take away here, and if you've never watched this before, we're not big on the around the horn format, but there's a lot to take in here. So we're going to kind of go division by division here. I mean, let's start with what you call the surprises. The Kings, I had this from the beginning. I told you Mike Brown was going to be the first coach fired. I told you that they were going to be there were 11 or 12 teams in the West that could make the playoffs. I thought they were going to be the odd man out. They're in 12th right now. It's exactly where I told you they'd be. Now, a lot can still change. Malik Monk wasn't healthy, and he's an absolute microwave of offense over there. So a lot can still happen. But this is what I thought was I don't think they're deep enough. Moving on from Davion Mitchell was not a good move, I don't think. I get you weren't going to pay him, so what difference does it make? But that's where I thought the Kings would be. On the flip side, the Clippers, listen, they're being carried by their defense right now if you check out the team stats. Do I think that's sustainable on a team that has James Harden on it? No, not terribly. But the blue collar side of the Clippers has been doing the work. If they hold up their end of the bargain, cool. They're a fun story. I would not trust them in the playoffs at all. If they make it, cool. I think they're going to cool off. But to me, the Warriors are kind of the interesting story here. Hey, listen, you said cool off. They're still on pace for 49 to 50 wins, which literally they're 49 and change is the average if you extrapolate that. Which I think more than a lot of people thought Klay Thompson's leaving would bring them below that. So I mean, if you told me in the offseason would the Warriors sign up for a 50-win season, absolutely. So I don't think that's a major disappointment there. And then I think the real question is, do the Suns back off? Kevin Durant, this is his second injury already. He missed a chunk of games. He's going to miss a chunk of games again. They got to get him right. And in a world where we don't know what a Klay Thompson-less Warriors are like in the playoffs, I get they have Steph. I get they're still the dynasty. They're still the Warriors, but they're not the same. They're not. I'm sorry. They're not they're Splash Brother. They're not Splash Brothers, right? So we don't know what they're going to be in the playoffs. If I'm the Suns, I don't care if I lose this division. I really don't. I'm not afraid of the Warriors being ahead of me, in the playoffs. So, there's a lot of moving to be done. The Lakers, meanwhile, are going to do what they do, right? A LeBron team is going to have drama. It's going to have hits and misses. They just lost by infinity billion points to the Heat. Who cares? Because it's not the playoffs yet. They're going to come somewhere between 7th and 10th because that's what a veteran LeBron team does. And I won't be, I'd still be terrified of them in the playoffs, right? It's the same dance every year. So I think the Lakers, despite the drama, are who we thought they'd be. I was right on the Kings. And the other three, surprising, but, to maybe record-wise, but I think there's a logic to what's going on with the rest of them.
I mean, I'm not totally surprised, and I didn't even bring up the Lakers drama because there's always drama, whether it was LeBron on the team, Kobe and Shaq, whoever. There's always drama with the Lakers. So you take it with a grain of salt, right? Like, that's
right.
just
I mean, the Venn diagram is solely in the middle, right? If you take LeBron teams and you take the Lakers traditionally, in the middle is just drama, right? I mean, that's where that belongs. And so, no, there's no real, I listen, death taxes and the media trying to overplay the Lakers, Yankees, and Cowboys, right? That's America. And that's where we are. But again, if as much as the media wants to get on JJ Redick's case, listen, he was brought in because LeBron can tolerate him. It's as easy as that. If I'm Mike Brown, I'm way more nervous as a coach. I told you originally I thought he was the first coach fired. JJ Redick, if LeBron went 45-0 and then decided I don't like the dude, he's looking at me funny, he'd be fired in 3 minutes. There's no point in worrying about the Lakers. They're going to do what LeBron teams do. They're going to do what Los Angeles teams do. If I'm Sacramento, I'm scared. If I'm the other 4 teams, I think I really have a chance if I somehow finish in the top 10.
Tommy?
You guys kind of said what I was going to say,
If you could pick
the one team that surprises me, I'll be honest, is the Kings. But I mean, it's early in the season. It's early enough in the season where that could turn around.
That was my question. Was going to be if you could pick what's your one surprise?
Yeah.
To me, my real surprise is the Clippers. Right? Like, I really did not see this team being 4 games above 500 at this point. I just, losing Paul George, is a thing. Kawhi hasn't been healthy, really, right? He's already missed the 16 games or whatever, more than 16 games. So he's no longer eligible for any postseason, or not postseason. I guess postseason awards that are still called. So I'm not totally surprised by that. Or sorry, I am totally surprised by them. I'm not totally surprised on the Kings. They're close to 500. Lakers close to 500. You just expect that. Golden State, they're also 4 games above 500. And Phoenix, once they get help, I don't know. I still think Phoenix is the best team in this division, and I think ultimately they'll win it. And that's that. All right, let's move on to the Northwest. We got OKC at 16-5. I believe they're leading the West. For whatever, here we go. Yes, leading the West. Then we have Denver at 11-8, Minnesota at 11-10, Portland at 8-14, and the Lonely Jazz at 4-17.
Time to face the music.
I mean, looking at these records, makes sense to me, right? I think a lot of us are very high on OKC. Minnesota, we figured there was going to be some learning for them. They made a very big trade. They got rid of arguably their second or best player, depending on how you look at it, with Karl Anthony Towns, and brought in someone who is always a tough sell in Julius Randle. And I'm not. It's not a slight against him. It's true. His whole time in with the Lakers, it was a hard sell there. I guess really in New Orleans he wasn't, but no one cared. There was no expectations in New Orleans. He came to the Knicks. There was no expectations, and then there became expectations, and then that went poorly for him. And now he's in Minnesota, and they're above 500, but they are struggling in a sense, and based off of their expectations, and fans aren't happy, and they're taking it out on Randall. Denver, this team is not the best built, so that you expect them, they still have the best player in the league, arguably with Joker, so you still expect them to have a good record. And after we saw how well OKC played last year, we all expected OKC to be winning this division for the most part. I think we should focus a little bit more on the drama that's happening in Minnesota. I think the fans are more upset than where the team is than the team is. Maybe the team is getting frustrated, but I think the fans are more upset because Cat was such a fan favorite. And losing your fan favorite for someone who you don't really want and is
inconsistent
is a big downgrade. Not a big downgrade, but is a downgrade in a sense. And just he has a tough time connecting with fans. Or at least it feels like he has a tough time. But he's not a bad person, and he doesn't he's just easy for people to attack. And it happened in New York, and we were doing it. I am fully aware I was attacking him. But what are your guys' thoughts on Minnesota? I think it's early. I think they'll eventually work things out. They'll figure out how to use DiVincenzo. Julius Randle will get into his role as an offensive piece for them. And, he won't have to worry. They don't have to worry because they have one of the best defensive centers, or arguably the best defensive center in the league, manning the center position. So they don't have to worry about Julius Randle's shortcomings on the defense, right? Like, they have a very solid defensive team, or they did. I haven't looked at their defensive stats this year, but they've in the past had a very solid defensive team that should be able to overcome his defensive shortcomings.
Tyler, you want to go first on this one, or you want to yell up to me?
I'll do this one. Yeah. I think Randall will figure out how he's his play in Minnesota, but I think even if Minnesota turns it around and they look better, and the fans are gonna look at any minute issue with this team and blame it on Randall. And I think, like you said, that's just an unfortunate part of his career thus far, is that he's the easy scapegoat. And I think it's going to, I can't speak for the man but I know if I were in his shoes, that would make me want to leave that team. So I would not be shocked to see if he's trying to, if not by the end of the season, maybe in the offseason, looking for greener pastures.
I believe he is a free agent at the end of the season. Kevin would check for us, but our fact checker's not in. And none of us are capable.
None of us care. They're the Timberwolves. They're going to lose in the second round regardless.
And they're going to blame it on Randall.
Hey, listen, real quick before I take my take on the Timberwolves here. Nuggets 11-8, having Aaron Gordon missed a chunk of games. When he came back, they kept him on the bench. You knew Westbrook was going to be kind of hit or miss with where he fit in the rotation. So the fact that they're 11-8, overcame a key injury, overcame 2 question marks in their rotation/starting lineup, that's really impressive. That's still a team to tremendously fear. So I think when, we talked about it originally that these 3 teams would be pretty close. So I think the fact that we're talking about the third place team in the Northwest, eventually tells you that this is a little bit of deck chairs on the Titanic. We're talking about a team that's going to finish somewhere between 4th and 8th. Ultimately, I think. And I do think, I jokingly just said it, but I'll stand by it. I don't think they were going to the Western Conference Finals anytime soon. But here's the thing:
last year? They lost to Dallas.
They did it, and they also lost Karl Anthony Towns. Listen, we made our predictions, or at least we're gathering our predictions prior to the Julius Randle trade. And if that had happened well ahead of time, I would have been incredibly skeptical of the Wolves, because either they are the absolute worst. Now, granted, they're traditionally one of the worst franchises historically. So they're either one of the worst run franchises, or they know something about Cat and Julius Randle that we don't. Because when have you ever seen a team build a super team, which is effectively what they tried to do, right? They did a big three with bringing in Gobert and seen it work right away. Even LeBron's Heat didn't win the first year, right? I mean, we know common sense says you have to let that team simmer before it can cook. And they didn't do that. And so either that is just terrible management, or there's a major problem here. And so if I'm a Timberwolf fan, yeah, I have every right to be skeptical and I have every right to be pissed. And listen, we know about Julius Randle. I've talked before on the show before. Google his connection and his friendship with Kobe Bryant. Julius Randle has been inspired by Kobe Bryant, that when he's really in slumps, he rents out high school gyms the way that Kobe Bryant used to do. And so Julius Randle needs that fire to be successful, which is part of why he had any success he did in New York, because in New York, you could lose by 2 to the Nuggets and be booed. There was no place to hide. It's Minnesota, guys. The Twins lost to the Yankees for 47 years in a row, and nobody seemed to care. The Vikings are letting Sam Darnold play quarterback. Nobody cares there. And so if the fans don't force the issue, Julius Randle's not going to force the issue. So Timberwolf fans, keep doing what you're doing. I think it's the only way to try and get anything out of him and to try and, force the hand there. But ultimately, Kilroy, I'm with you. I think this team is defensively strong. I think they actually got deeper on the bench. Rob Dillingham is going to eventually keep developing, produce, be a nice factor there. And I think this team is still a playoff team. I never thought, I originally had them third in the division, which means by definition they were going to take a step back this year, because if they were only third in their division, let alone in the West, they weren't going to be the final two standing. So, I'm not too surprised. They're tied for 10th. They're tied to be in the play-in. I think the Clipper defense is not sustainable. You know how the Lakers regular season mantra is. They don't care if a team gets hot and passes them. So Minnesota can easily get ahead of them there. Minnesota can finish somewhere between 5th and 8th in the West, and, losing 6 to the Nuggets or something like that, or losing 5 to the Thunder. And I don't think anyone should be really disappointed about that.
Mm-hmm. Now, I will say this, allegedly, one of the big reasons they did do the trade was because they knew that they was the cap. They didn't want to hit the second apron. And that's totally fine. I think that's even more on brand for Minnesota. When was the last time the Twins literally waited until 3 different teams took on and got rid of Carlos Correa before they signed him? And that was probably the last house brand name, to be brought into Minnesota elsewhere. With all due respect, by the way, to the Minnesota Lynx, the WNBA Minnesota team might be the most respectable Minnesota team out there. Listen, that's very on brand. It doesn't surprise me. It makes a little more sense, but still doesn't change. In fact, it probably gives the fans more reason to be angry. And so, Randall's the face of the quote change in Minnesota. And so he's going to take the brunt of it because everyone else was there when it was quote happier times. So listen, I don't blame the fans. I will give this to Julius Randle. Wherever he goes, he has critics. He does not care. He just keeps on keeping on. We've heard Dante DiVincenzo's name thrown around about unhappiness and trade demands and wanting to be a starter and this, that, and the other. Julius Randle just keeps doing what he's doing, and I respect him for that. But, ultimately, I do think unless this team makes several major, deadline trades to get deeper, I don't even know where this guy is right now, but you know how Thad Young gets traded every year at the deadline, on the deadline, guys like that, if Minnesota goes out and finds a handful of those guys to make their 8th through 11th man, it's maybe a different story. But right now they're a little too shallow. They're a little too unproven. I still never believe Julius Randle wins a championship. He's just in the hall of really good, not great. It's a champion,
I've talked about this ad nauseum on this channel, that the NBA above all other leagues is a league where the superstars win, the stars don't. And so unless and again, Anthony Edwards can get hot at any moment. But this team did not have championship aspirations to me from the beginning. It didn't even really when it was a big three. I just thought they could make some noise in the playoffs, and I still think that. So it's much ado about nothing. But again, it really is the fans just getting really, really pissed in Minnesota. Because again, if you're an avid sports fan, you see the Wild as a good team that probably can't compete with the Connor McDavids of the world as much as Edmonton's, struggling lately. You see the Vikings. You don't believe Sam Darnold can win a Super Bowl. Are you kidding me? You see the Twins going into it. You never know. I get that. But you see the Twins going into another offseason and not even being in the conversation of the spenders. Like, you have every right to be pissed as a Minnesota fan. I don't blame
them. As a Jet fan, would it pain you if Sam Darnold won the Super Bowl this year?
I'm a Jet fan. There is no pain. There is no pain, only moving up in the draft. That was, by the way,
I feel that.
Clutch loss. I know we're going off topic. Stay with me for a minute. I said it on the You Go Boy podcast. Like, share, subscribe. The Jets, amongst all the mediocre bad teams, so like not like Raiders, but like half step above, they have the most incentive to need to tank, because like the Giants, the Saints, they have a winnable game this week. And after that, they're a lock to go 0-4. They're not beating the Ravens, the Falcons, the Eagles, etc. They're done. But the Jets had the Seahawks coming across the country. The Rams are coming across the country. They played 2 with the Dolphins, who never sweep in the AFC. They have the Jaguars. They have such an easy schedule, especially with Geno getting his feet wet in the Meadowlands again. They had to just be terrible. They had to be awful in that game to not lose that game, and they did. Bravo to the Jets for really letting Seattle, snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. Bravo. I mean, that was important, and they're going to have to do the same when you're going to see 3 guys miss a tackle on Cooper Kupp at the line of scrimmage in the second quarter of that Ram game in a few weeks, and I'm here for it. Really, really nice work, Jets. Bravo.
Is this the new segment?
Yeah,
the Jets. Eventually, we will have a football show on here. It's called
doing the work.
It's called Drop Kick for the Win.
Let's go. I'm here for it.
All right, let's move on to the other Western Conference.
I'm here for that Drop Kick for the Win.
I love that name.
I buy that. I'm here for it. Listen, I'll be on that show. Sign me up. Can I talk about the Jets? Can I talk about the Jets tanking prowess for an hour?
Yeah, as long as you also talk about Vinny Testaverde.
No, I'm here for it. I like it.
All right, on to the Southwest. We got Houston leading the division at 15-7, followed by Dallas at 14-8, Memphis at 14-8, San Antonio above 500 at 11-10, and the injury-riddled New Orleans Pelicans at 4-18. Before I let Tommy ooze his Spurs love, let's address Kevin's favorite player, Zion Williamson.
Kevin's so heartbroken that Zion couldn't make it to the team.
I don't think Zion's played a single game this year. He has a hamstring injury, I believe, and he's, I believe, like a month away, if not longer, from being ready, which is so odd. This has just been so odd. He is in the best shape of his career. Is it just the wear and tear? Is it he just doesn't want to play for the Pelicans? And he's I just don't understand. There's virtually no trade. What's the word? Value. There we go for him at this point. This feels to me that his career is trending more towards Greg Oden, where when he did play early in his career, he was dominant, fantastic. But injuries got the best of him, and you're going to start seeing as his career continues, because of the injuries, assuming these injuries are legitimate, which I believe they are, you're going to start seeing a decline in because his athleticism is going to start going, and that's what made him so dominant. You're going to start seeing a dip in his stats, and you're going to see his dip in his playing, and he'll eventually just be like championship teams are going to try to pick him up for a cheap contract as a potential microwave offense type guy off the bench. That's my opinion. I don't take that check to the bank, but that's what
I've got
I'm fearing.
opinions too.
Fearing is Zion's career path at this point is more on the Greg Oden, and that's not a disrespect to Greg Oden, because again, it was injuries that ruined his career, and I feel bad for Greg Oden that people are so rude and call him one of the biggest busts of all time. I think if injuries are involved, it's not being a bust; it's out of your control. But I guess conditioning is part of it. But you know what I mean.
No, I'm totally with you. And listen, I'll be honest. As an enraged fan of Greg Oden, I actually worry the other way. Listen, I wish the best for Zion Williamson. I hope he figures it out. But if he ends up on a championship team, ends up a 7th, 8th man, manages to put together 50, 60 games, that team wins a championship, we're going to hear about how it was like Bill Walton in '86 coming off the Celtics bench. That will piss me. Listen, Bill Walton, the late great Bill Walton, I don't want to hear that nonsense. Like at this point, I almost hope he Greg Oden instead of accidentally winning a ring, for coming off the bench for 20 minutes a night, because the dude's still dominant. The dude can still play, and his college career alone, if he ends up with a ring, an all-star appearance, from here on out, plus his college career, we're going to have a does Zion belong in the Hall of Fame discussion at some point, which is
don't tell Kevin. Which
is beyond insane. I mean, and listen, don't go out there saying Mongo has a hot take. I'm telling you it's insane. But because the Basketball Hall of Fame factors in college, high school, best sauce on the nachos putter, everything else, it's absolutely bonkers that we find ourselves in a world where this dude was supposed to be the face of the franchise, and there's still a whole lot of life left.
League, really.
And so let's put it this way. I think baseball, better than any sport, kind of just uses feel, right? Does this guy feel like a Hall of Famer? Does this guy, you can argue, especially because baseball has so many stats. But listen, what do we have? I pointed when Elfrid Payton made his grand return from not playing for 2 years. On that particular night, they had like McCollum injured and Herb Jones injured and Ingram injured and Zion injured. And literally they were like down to 8 guys, 3 of whom they just brought in. Zion is so much a net negative. It didn't faze me. I just associate the Pelicans with being the infirmary at this point, because what do you think of when you think of the Pelicans? You think of Zion. What do you think of when you think of Zion? You think of him being injured. Literally, by the transitive property, you just associate the Pelicans with death. Why would you want this guy on your team? I don't get it. I don't know. You got to just let him go at this point. Cut your losses. If you make the playoffs in 1 year, cool. But, let him go. But again, there's a real chance that if he can put together 40 to 50 games one season, he's going to contribute probably as a 6th man to a team that's probably going to accidentally win a championship. And that already just angers me. I'm just warning you right now. I'm going to be miserable on that show when Zion gets a ring before Patrick Ewing.
Look, I don't know. Eddie Curry got a ring.
I mean, that's a little bit different.
Than that?
Like, I do think if Zion's not contributing, no one's bringing him in. I will say that either Zion can play or Zion won't play. I don't think there's a world where Zion.
I will say if Eddie Curry can get a ring, Zion deserves one. Can we agree on that?
If Eddie Curry can get a ring, I mean,
he did. He got it with the late.
I know. I'm saying, but if he gets one. I mean, I give one to give one to Peter Rabbit. I don't know. Give one to Give one to
Kevin.
Yeah, give one to Kevin. Why not?
I don't know. He'll be mad because he didn't earn it.
That's fair. Well, actually, I shouldn't say neither will Zion. He'll be a major player off the bench. At this point, listen, my point on a more serious note, my point is at this point, I think it's officially time we accept the fact that Zion is not a face of the franchise. And even with the, immaturity, I guess I'll say to keep this conversation short, Ja Morant was the right pick there. And, honestly, you can even make the case at this point, do you risk Zion having one good year in him, Or was even RJ Barrett the better pick that year? Should Zion have been a Nick all along? Should he have been 3 in a redraft in that league? In that draft. I know it wasn't a great draft.
If you do a redraft, I imagine that Barrett and him both fall pretty far. Right.
I mean, I'm just saying amongst the top of that, because obviously every draft has the guys who come out of nowhere, but in hindsight, has keep his ceiling in mind, but now factor in what we know about his ability to stay healthy. I think if you go back to that draft day, not redraft, but go back, there's a subtle but obvious difference there. I think the Pelicans definitely go with Ja, and you question, do the Grizzlies go with Barrett? And, I think they do. I think you, at this point, have to accept the guy who's going to give you 15 to 20 a night, and not be a major factor for 10 years over the guy who might accidentally have a ceiling to make you a contender one day, but you never know. I mean, he's wasted so many years.
That's fair. So can't wait for him to sign with the Knicks to come off the bench.
Kevin's going to be so excited if that happens.
Real quick, shout out to Elfrid Payton. I sent you this stat when it happened. When he came back into the league this year, he had played his 500th game in April of 2022. When he stepped on the court in November this year, that was his 500th first game. They literally went out and found somebody who hadn't played for about 27 months and said, "You're the starting point guard." That's what's up in New Orleans right now.
So that's New Orleans. Do we want to talk about anyone else before we let Tommy talk about San Antonio?
Now, just go right to. We're running low on time. Go to Tommy
and we'll quick on Zion.
Yeah, go ahead, Tommy.
So I remember when that draft was coming up, they weren't just hyping up him to be a face of a franchise. They were saying that he could be the face of the league.
Facts.
Like, I consider him probably the biggest draft bust of the past decade.
Oh, well, decade. I mean, that's
okay. But when you consider how hyped up he was.
Okay, first off, Anthony Bennett.
Okay.
Hey, brother, I hate to tell you, but after Anthony Bennett's barely in the last decade.
I didn't say the biggest. I said one of the biggest.
When was Anthony Bennett drafted? I'm going to look this up. You guys talk.
All right. I think he's 2014, but you can check it. If he's June of 2014, he's not in the last decade.
Let's see. You keep talking.
All right. Sorry. Yeah, we're all watching Kilroy. Yeah, it's radio, guys. No dead time. Come on. We know better than that. But
that was the point I was trying to make because.
But no, Tommy,
done nothing for the Pelicans.
Tommy, I think I'll give you this.
Okay.
And
my bad. He is also way older than I thought he was. He's 31.
At 2014?
2013.
Okay, yeah. So he's not even in the last decade, which is why I called out Tommy's number there.
But
Tommy, I think what I'll give you, and because Kilroy said something, so I think we need to kind of play them side by side here. Kilroy mentioned about the idea of injuries in a bust. Tommy, you went as far as to say the decade. I think it's actually way longer than that, at least if you're discussing top 5 or top 10, maybe not greatest, but, because you got guys like Jake Tizikavillis or whoever the Nuggets were drafting for 20 years in a row there from 95 to 2015. But yeah, you got guys like that. But here's what I will say. Even Darko Milicic, who I think is a famous bust, had at least – he had a great ceiling, but he had a great floor. There was some unknown, Dante Exum going 4 and everyone went, who, there was really, other than injury, which you have to admit is universal. Some guys have more reason to be afraid than others, but at the end of the day, injury is universal. So if you take it out for a second, just for the sake of the argument, and when you look at ceiling versus reasons, academically, reasons, playing wise to be concerned, Zion was as high as anybody. And so, Tommy, I think to your point, that's where he does truly become a bust because, they're like Markelle Fultz, right? First overall, but we knew when he came out, shooting was going to be a question mark. He could never figure out how to shoot a free throw, but at least there was a question about that. Ben Simmons, the fact that the dude could have literally gone to any major program on earth and went to hide in LSU should have told you everything you need to know about the guy's character, right? There are certain guys you can look back on and go, oh yeah, there was an obvious telltale sign. The dude literally there was other than the fact that he could injure himself, the dude was faster as a linebacker. The dude was faster missing a shoe during a game in Duke than the average point guard is. Like, there was no reason to doubt this dude, and that's why you have to be as disappointed as you are if you're not only a Pelican fan but a fan of basketball. I mean, there's no reason that you should not be upset about this. I don't even care if you're the biggest Pelican hater on earth. This is a dude who we wanted to see. He was so much fun to watch in Duke. He was part of the college storyline because, unlike Ben Fear Factor Simmons, he went to a major player program in college, and just it's disappointing. It's disappointing as a fan and as an advocate of the league to be watching these years pass by.
Yeah.
All right, Tommy, tell us about them Spurs.
I am loving these Spurs.
As you should.
As I should. For comparison, last season, I don't think they won 10 games until after the trade deadline. I'm not sure how correct that is, but it took them a while to win 10 games. And we're already over 500 and within in about 21 games, I think. I think that's how many like the Spurs have played. My point is they're looking really, really nice this year. I don't think they're groundbreaking this year. I think they still got a lot of work to do, but Stephon Castle's came out looking really good. Wemby has been good. Now that blanking on names here, Devin Vassell. Now that Devin Vassell's back, I'm expecting that he'll be doing great. And Chris Paul has done a lot for this team. Just a lot.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of the best point guards of his generation.
Exactly, and he's proving why. He's played, I think he started every single game of the season, and it shows.
No, I mean, we've seen this a lot. I think baseball is the best blueprint for this, where you look at the 9 guys and go, you know, there are 1 or 2 borderline Hall of Famers on that team. There are 2 or 3 All-Stars. There are a couple veteran journeymen and a rookie who plays like his house is on fire, you know. And, you know, you see those are the teams that tend to be very successful. And I feel like that's what San Antonio has done here. They've put together, you know, they've put together the couple old stalwarts in Paul and Barnes. And I get that those guys are not historically on the same level, but for the sake of what they're trying to do, you went out and got 2 proven veterans. You have that mix of, you know, less harm than good, you know, veterans in the Zach Collinses of the world. You know, you have your young guys who continue to develop. And then you have your rookies to be excited about. You know, one of the easiest ways to be successful is to be able to hit your, you know, attacker at multiple levels. And the Spurs have done that. Not a lot of teams can claim that, you know, and I respect what they've done there a heck of a lot.
And to do a lot of this without Popovich, who has been, you know, out with what I read was a mild stroke. Rest up, Pop. Hope to have you back soon. It's just impressive, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Good call, Tommy.
All right, ready to move east?
Yeah, we'll have to go through the 2/3 of this pretty quick, but we can do it. Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, Central, Cavs are 19-3, Milwaukee 11-10, Chicago 9-13, Indiana 9-14, Detroit 9-15. I could have swore Detroit was doing better than that. I just
Detroit.
felt like they were. I was hearing such positive things about them. I thought their record would have been more than 9 wins. I thought they were close to 500. Whoops, my mistake. I knew the Pacers were bad, and I knew the Bulls were bad. Milwaukee was struggling early on. They seemed to overcome whatever issues they had, and they are now 1 game above 500. Cleveland has been dominant early in this year. We'll see if they are able to continue with this. I mean, they'll still be one of the best teams, right? Like in the East, they'll be top 5 most likely, right? We can all say that when the dust settles.
Yeah, now let's real quick, and sorry to cut you off. Let's just for my math nerds out there, let's just play. They've played 22 games so far, so let's just play the numbers game real quick. After 15 games, they were 15-0, on pace for 82-0 if you extrapolate that. After 22 games, they've gone 4-3 in the last 7. If you repeat that over and over again and then add 15, they're on pace to be 53-29. So, I mean, I don't think they're going to go 4-3, 4-3, 4-3 every chunk of 7. So, but I also don't think they're a team that's going to go 82-0. So, I mean, add a couple wins here and there, you're probably looking at a high 50s win team, which is still more impressive than we thought. It's coach of the year material, but it's not much higher. And if they continue this 4-3, which again, we know that every team has that, to different levels, has that secretive fear of being that team that just overplays its hand in the regular season. I think they end up closer to 53, not closer to 53 than 82. They definitely will. But I think they end up really close to that 53. I think that stays fairly sustainable. And then they're a good team, but they're a team that will eventually get passed by Boston. They're a team that could easily get passed by a couple other teams. So, not to, again, and listen, with all due respect in the playoffs, no, I still don't respect them. Indy's going to get better. Somehow the Bulls are going to get worse. And hey, listen,
Kevin, you don't think Indy's going to get better?
I don't. Yeah, I love you, Kevin. Pacers stink. Sorry, my bad. Hey, listen, I think the real story here, if you're going to pick any, might be the fact that I don't know if it's possible to get better than being the MVP. Giannis has just taken. I mean, this is something new. Every 7 to 10 days, you'll just see Giannis puts up a 45-point triple-double in a win. I mean, he has gone berserk.
He's willing this team to victory.
Yeah, in ways, and that's LeBron, right? What has LeBron done?
That's true.
If you look at Giannis's age versus LeBron's age, he could do this for another 10, 12, 15 years. I mean, there's no reason to not believe that Giannis has just officially reached. It's one thing to be an MVP. It's another thing to reach superstardom stratus, where you can literally just do whatever you want. It's really impressive.
Yeah, I mean, the argument can be made that it's tough, right? Because there's so much talent in this league, but the argument can be made that he's the best player in the league, right?
Yeah. Because here's the counter argument. Even when he was winning MVPs, he had talent around him. When they won the championship, he had Middleton there, he had guys with him. We've never really seen what Giannis unhinged is. We're kind of seeing in terms of statistics, we're seeing a heel turn, right? We're just letting him collect stats. He's going full Iverson, right? He's just collecting stats for the sake of collecting stats. We don't know where the ceiling is on this because we've never seen it before. He's always had multiple near all-stars around him. God only knows where this ends.
That's true. Let's move to the Southeast.
Oh, Tommy, you go first because, boy, do I have thoughts here.
Let me just read the records real quick.
Go for it.
Orlando is 16-8. Atlanta's 12-11.
Love them.
Miami's 10-10. Charlotte's 6-15. And Mongo's pick from a few years ago, the Washington Wizards.
You remember when I thought this team was developing?
2-17, historically bad.
Did they accomplish the no-win November? Did they accomplish
that?
They did.
They went 0-14 in November.
They're on a 15-game losing streak. That's right.
They were 2-2 at one point.
They were 2-2 and are now 2-17.
Let's see if they can go 2-80.
Go, live the dream. Oh man. Listen, I'm gonna just jump. I can't wait. I'm jumping in here. Sorry, Tommy. I'm sure we're gonna say some.
No, you take the floor because you can say a lot more than I can.
Listen, this is not unexpected. We literally, go back and watch our preview shows. Please go back and watch our preview shows. But if you watch our preview shows, we kept jokingly taking wins away from the Wizards when we were trying to balance out our teams. We knew that this team, anything they won was going to be an accident, right? I mean, so this is not a surprise. But here's the problem. You guys know I'm the eternal optimist, especially when Kevin's bashing LeBron or bashing just for the sake of bashing. I try to come in and defend with stats. This is a team, they played 14 games in November, right? That's what we're going to remember about this Wizard team, that they had the no-win November. 14 games in November, 6 at home, 8 on the road. So it's not like they played 12 of them on the road, right? Fairly split. And hey, they never went further than Texas. No West Coast games, winnable. The schedule wasn't terrible. And at home, 0-6, obviously 0-something, 0-6, lost by an average of 18.2 per game, including losses against Detroit and Chicago. This is historically terrible, and it only gets harder schedule-wise. I mean, this is unbelievable.
So I pulled up the worst records in NBA history. They are currently, and obviously the season's not over, but their 2-17 is the lowest win percentage in NBA history. Now, granted, there's a whole season still left to go. The worst record ever, and win percentage wise, is the 2012 strike shortened season with the Charlotte Bobcats, who went 7-59 with a .106 win percentage. Right now, Washington is at .105.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, for context, this extrapolates to 8-68 with 6 games to play,
which puts them at the worst 82 game record ever.
Right. Now the thing they have going for them is that come March, come April, when they're playing the Bobcats, who are trying to jostle for lottery position, when they're playing
Hornets,
who cares? No one watches them. When they're playing, when the Bullets are playing the Vancouver Grizzlies, when the Montreal Expos are playing the Houston Comets.
Forget the Providence Steamrollers.
Listen, nobody cares about this part of the league. But anyway, despite my faux pas there, you get my point. Washington will be playing to avoid ultimate humiliation, and they'll be playing against a handful of teams who are actively trying to move up in the draft. So it's really, really, really hard to break these, incompetence records because you have so many teams who are actively trying to be incompetent. So I think that even as terrible as this team is, Kyle Kuzma's missed a couple games. Eventually, they're going to trade Malcolm Brogdon and let Bub Carrington have the reins, who he is so much better as a starter, as a young kid, because then he can just be himself. I think this team will get better by subtraction, actually. George off the bench, the other rookie, is looking decent. There's a lot to actually like about this team's future, and I think they end up with about 16, 17 wins. But man, this is historically bad, because if you were looking to try and break some trends, they had their opportunities, right? Especially against Detroit, who's also reeling, who also doesn't care about winning, especially against Chicago, who basically is trying to, last time we heard, Kevin's been sending us links, right? They're trying to trade Vucevic. They're trying to trade Patrick Williams. They literally are actively trying to jettison their team. And even they were able to beat the Wizards by 1 billion points. So, this is real, real bad.
It's a bad feeling. All right, on to our final division, and then we'll wrap things up. We got the Atlantic, led by the Boston Celtics. Jeff's team at 18-4, followed by our New York Knicks. Woo! 13-8, 1 win more than last season at this point with the same games.
Nice.
Brooklyn at 10-13, Toronto at 7-15, and the Philadelphia 76ers bringing up the rear at 5 wins only and 15 losses.
Did I call it or did I call it?
Hey, listen, real quick. I just want to say 2 things, because I know I'm going to have to defend my Sixers pick in a moment here. 5-15, for the Sixers. But that was actually uglier earlier in the season. They're actually moving in the right direction. They obviously can't stay healthy, but they also have not, if they actually get a chance to play a chunk together, listen, all they have to do is be 10 and they're still terrifying. And the teams in front of them are trying to lose. So I'm not too worried about them. And I still am not ripping up that ticket, as someone who bet there. But where I will brag, because Tommy, if you want to brag about the Sixers, that's, with all due respect, that's low hanging fruit, right? The whole team's injured. You can easily has an injury history. The team that I feel great about my prediction here is a team that's currently in the play-in. I warned you guys, the Nets are just the best of the worst. They're going to win a lot of games by accident this year. They're young. Their guys they're built. Their core is really built right now. Those guys have something to prove. Those guys have a reason to win games, to prove to ownership they belong there. Listen, I even think 10-15 might end up being too high. I think they might be worse than being a 400 team. But given what's below them, I told you originally, there's no reason not to believe the Nets can finish 9th or 10th, and here they are at 8th, a quarter of the way in. So I'm willing to think I feel better about my net prediction than I feel worse about my Sixer prediction. So it's a wash positive for me.
So I will say this: I am not at all worried about the Sixers. I would be more worried. I'll be worried if this is still continuing at the halfway mark of the season. It is a bit annoying that Joel is not going to be playing any back-to-back games. I don't know if that will stay forever, like they're saying it for the rest of his career. It's hard for the team to dig itself out of this hole with him not being able to play back-to-back games, right? Like, you're the best player on this team, right? You're an MVP. You're supposed to be one of the best in the league, and you're not going to be playing back-to-back games at all. Like, not even when it's crucial. I imagine that's not going to stay, right? Like, if the team is fighting for a playoff spot or fighting for higher position, he's going to play, right?
Yeah, I'd imagine so. And I think the important word there is crucial. And just to put this into perspective, they're currently 3 games back of 9th. And in order to get into the play-in, the teams they would have to pass are the Raptors, the Bulls, the Pistons, and the Hornets. I refuse to accept the argument that urgency is already against them. That is, if you told me I have to make up 3 games against those 4 teams, I'm giving my whole team a day off. There's no reason to be concerned right now because, I like a lot of these teams, but at the end of the day, if the Sixers are even missing one guy, let alone being fully healthy, I trust the Sixers as a 10 over the Cavs as a 2. I trust the Sixers as a 10 over the Magic as a 6. I trust the Sixers as a 10 over the Hawks as a 7. I mean, are you kidding me? There's no the power rankings. They could be the 20th best record in the playoffs, and on power ranking alone, they'd be somewhere between 11 and 15 easily, if not higher. I mean, there's no reason. You're as a Sixer fan, you're just thinking, can we get to 10? Now, again, ideally you want to get to. Ideally you want to get to 6, but ideally you want to get to 8, so you have that one margin of error there. But this is the Jimmy Butler Heat from a couple years ago. If they're in, they're terrifying, and the teams they have to pass right now to get in are teams that are actively trying to get behind them. So why should they be terrified right now?
No, they shouldn't be. Now, again, I still do think that if this lingers too long into when we're getting closer to the halfway point, you might see something has to change, right? Like Oh, by the way, they also, let's not forget, they currently have the lead, the favorite for Rookie of the Year on this team.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I talked about how the Spurs built themselves. I mean, listen, you got to respect what the Sixers have done. Obviously, they can't stay healthy, but they've tiered superstars with veteran players, with up-and-coming young kids, with rookies, right? They did exactly what the Spurs did, except they bought for it instead of drafted for it, which is why the Spurs are I'm more infinitely respectful to the Spurs than I am to the Sixers. But the idea is still there that the Sixers have recognized that the way to build a team in this ever-changing NBA is to tier where you're getting your talent from. You can't just say we're going to be – listen, 15, 20 years ago, the Warriors basically said, we're just going to be better at the draft than everybody, and it worked. 10, 15 years ago, the Heat just said, we're going to buy everybody, and it worked. The league is catching up to itself. You can't just say, I'm going to be good at one thing. It's kind of like the MLB now where, teams need to be very good in every aspect. And so you're seeing the Sixers trying that. You're seeing the Spurs succeeding better at that. But it's the right plan. That's why I picked them to be the Eastern champion this year, because I think the logic is correct. I just think they need time to get healthy. And because remember, they brought in so many new people. Every game with an injured player is not just a game they can bet or lose, but it's a game they can't gel. Even if they were fully healthy, I would have said easily 12-8, even 10-10 at after 20 games was reasonable. So they're not far off. They weren't going to go. They were never going to be, where are we at here? What did we say? We said 20 games at this point. They were never going to be 16-4 at this point. We didn't expect them 5-15, but between 5 and 16 is not that much of a difference through the first quarter turn of the season. So, I'm not worried. I still don't, like I said, I'm not thrilled about my prediction. In hindsight, you guys had every right to criticize, but I would definitely not be ripping up that bet if I had one, because I like where they're at.
I was high on the Sixers as well. Let's pivot to the Knicks and the Celtics, if you don't mind.
The Celtics are really good. Now let's pivot to the Knicks.
No, well, I just wanted to say real quick, the Celtics are who we thought they were, and we can definitely not let them off the hook.
Yeah, that's fair. Listen. I will say this. My only worry now with the Celtics is sustainability. To come out swinging the way they have when so many of them played in the Olympics, when they had, to some extent a tumultuous offseason, will exhaustion kick in? And again, I almost hope it does. I would trust this team more if they were like the 3 seed with 52 wins than if they were the 1 seed with 64 wins. I want to see them rest a little bit. I know apparently Jaylen Brown hates that, but I want to see them rest a little bit. I want to see them face a little adversity, because if they win 65 games, get to Cleveland and go down 2-0, I don't know if I necessarily trust this team to find a way. Let them have some haters, let them have some doubters, and then let them prove everybody wrong. I think that's the much easier path here.
That's fair. Let's go to the Knicks to wrap things up. We have hit the hour mark, which is, oh boy, the Knicks.
You go. I got nothing.
The Knicks made a very big trade. They went and got Karl Anthony Towns. There's some Kevin was not thrilled about. I can't say anyone else, but Kevin was not thrilled initially. He did warm up to it as we got closer, because he just was concerned about. He didn't think that Karl Anthony Towns was that much better than Julius Randle. Julius Randle was healthy at this point last year in the season, and the Knicks do have one more win. So it's not like a large amount more wins, but it is one more win than they did last year at the same point. Karl Anthony Towns leading this team offensively. And this is all, by the way, their defense has struggled for Tom Thibodeau team's defense, but they are missing Mitchell Robinson. They never really replaced Isaiah Hartenstein, right? They didn't. And the Knicks bigs, we kind of ignore. I didn't really. I did talk about this a few times, but the media was ignoring. The Knicks never addressed their center position. Yes, Karl Anthony Towns is playing center for them right now, but he's not really a center, right? He's been a power forward for the past few years with Rudy Gobert, and just in general, his playing style is more of a stretch big than it is a center. And they don't have the rebounding, offensive rebounding skills with this current roster that they had last year. So my question to you guys is, when Mitchell Robinson does come back, which is supposed to be sometime early next year, we'll say January, right? Once he gets a few games under his belt, do you insert him into the starting lineup and bench someone like Hart or Bridges? And because you're not like, what do you do to make Mitchell to improve this team, right? Because their shortcomings is their center position. I'm not sure if there's anyone easily available in free agency or based off of cap issues. I don't know if there's someone they can trade for even.
Y'all can have Zach Collins.
A defensive center. I mean, I'm obviously like Walker Kessler would be great, but the Jazz want 1 million draft picks for him. What are your thoughts, Mongo?
I think Mitchell Robinson creates, sort of what the Yankees wanted DJ LeMahieu to create. And early on in his contract, he did, where it gives you flexibility. I think you're going to see, we talked about, if you remember, I said I thought McBride was a great 6 man of the year candidate because I thought he was the only Knick that was safely guaranteed to be the microwave offense off the bench. I think they really need to play the matchups, and I get that sounds like a cop-out, but it's nice to have 6 guys pick your most logical 5. I think their best team is still with Mitchell Robinson off the bench, but I also get that you need to use him. It kind of depends on the other team's style, because really, listen, Mitchell Robinson, good defender, but more importantly, he's a defender. And I know that sounds weird, but right now the big problem is if you're the opposing team, you have no reason not to go to the basket. Like literally just putting a totem pole in the paint would do wonders for this team, just because at least you'd have to get around it. And so, it's not like the guys, it would be different if the team was doing everything it was supposed to do on defense and wasn't producing. It's just a team that's literally lacking size in the paint. And bravo to Josh Hart for, picking up the slack on the boards as best as he has.
It's like 6'4".
For his size, right? But, I don't think it's right for Anunoby to come off the bench skill-wise. I don't think it's right pride-wise for Hart to come off the bench, and I don't think it's right money-wise for Bridges to come off the bench. It doesn't make sense to declare any of them the sixth man unless you get a Russell Westbrook situation where one of them says, I don't care, make me the sixth man. But if all six guys want to start, you definitely play the matchups, and you definitely bring Mitchell Robinson in to replace whichever guy is not giving because that's the other thing, right? Mitchell Robinson alone can be the best thing he can offer is a threat, right? Listen, if you're the fifth best player on defense in the first 3 minutes, you're the guy getting pulled tonight for Mitchell Robinson, so he can act as that motivator for the starting five, but also for when they play against either more aggressive teams or better, 2-point shooting teams. He provides that factor. And when they're playing against, more perimeter teams, against the Rockets, you probably don't really need them. Against some other teams, you probably need them a lot. So I think he provides more versatility than a definition of a starter. And in terms of talent, no, I don't think he's one of the 5 best players, but I definitely think he'll get some starts when the matchup calls for it.
But his defense is one of the 5 best defenses, right?
Oh, yes, but partly because Anunoby shouldn't be discussed in this conversation. I mean, listen, like, Bridges has not been himself defensively early on. He's slowly coming around. I fully trust Brunson and Hart's defense. And you're not pulling Cat, because if you pull Cat for Robinson, it's still the same problem. Even if they're the best defense on earth, they're still too small. So at the end of the day, you're basically asking me, is Robinson's defense better than Anunoby's? And the answer is yes. I mean, I'll concede that, but that's basically what you're asking the question of. But at the end of the day, I think if there's a smaller lineup out there, you sacrifice the defense. So because if you say Robinson's the starter, period, and you're playing against a team with a small 4, that guy's just going around Cat anyway and getting Robinson in foul trouble. What good does it do? So you got to play the matchup.
I think the Knicks still need to find someone to come off the bench who's outside of Mitch Robinson, who is a rim protector.
Oh, I'd still or I would really let I literally don't remember his name, the undrafted rookie, or not undrafted, but the late second round rookie, and Precious Achiuwa. I would love to see what they can do in definitive 10th man minutes. But if you don't trust them, then yeah, you need to go out and get somebody. But this team was at its best last year. Even when it's been Taj Gibson, I mean, this team has been at its best when they have 5 true 4 or 5s on the roster. And even Anunoby, barely qualifies. So they have at best 3 4 or 5s, maybe 4 4 or 5s on the team right now. So yeah, I'm with you. They could use one more if they don't believe that those guys who are at the back end of the roster can carry their own as the 4th or 5th best big on this team. I think it's on the roster. I like those kids. I like what they do. I wouldn't do a whole lot with this team.
No, nothing major.
I think the primary concern is definitely just getting Bridges right. I think he has looked better in the last 10 games than he did in the first 10 games. And if he can get back to where he was, if everyone can get healthy, I still think in a world where I don't trust Cleveland, in a world where the Sixers are going to have to exhaust themselves just to get into the playoffs, in a world where the Heat get older by the minute. I still see no reason why Knicks Celtics is not a reasonable prediction for the Eastern Conference Championship.
I would love for. Well, I don't know where they would have to sit for that to happen. I would love to see that.
Right. Obviously, if they're 1-4, it doesn't work. But you get my point.
Right. But yeah. I would love to see that, and yeah. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. Remember, like, share, subscribe, comment down below about Chet Holmgren's injury, because we didn't bring him up at all.
Wow, there's left field, there's the left field bleachers, and then there's that poll by Kilroy. Very nice. Bravo.
Catch you guys next time.
Love y'all.